What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Watching Sundays. This episode of Game of Thrones was called Beyond the Wall.
Oh my god, it was amazing.
Dude,
I was gonna say that that episode with the dragons when they took out the Lannisters and that army was the best episode of the season, but I would say this really left everything on the line.
They had a lot of money left in the budget.
I guess so. This was just such a good episode. Oh my goodness, I can't wait to really get into it.
So we'll try to get through this recap as fast as possible so we can get to the nitty-gritty of this episode.
We can't slow down the way we talk right now. Everything just happened so fast. I wish it was like 2 hours of this
We all
episode.
know what you want to start talking about, so let's get through this. The episode started with Jon and the Fellowship of the Nightwalker traveling through the snow. A lot of great shots, a lot of great cinematography on display there. There was a lot of great dialogue between Jon, Jorah, and Tormund, especially when he mentioned that Mance Rayder was also a king in the north.
Yeah, that was really interesting. You know, they were talking about having to bend the knee and how many people did his people die because of his pride.
Yeah, and so it was a great parallel that was drawn there. The Hound and Tormund, there was just a lot of there was just a lot of back and forth between the people in the Fellowship, and I thought it was a great development of character in that scene.
It was really interesting because, you know, the Hound doesn't like anybody, and maybe he still doesn't like anybody, but that character development between the two of them really almost set up the whole episode. Like, oh, this has to be one of those episodes. Like, oh, there's this cool character development happening. One of them is gonna fucking die.
And their chemistry and their dialogue in this episode really emboldened their relationship as it stood prior to the episode that we saw them in.
Because, you know, shit is about to go down, and who knows who's gonna die. That moment right there is like, if one of them's gonna die, both of them's gonna die.
They became brothers.
Yeah, it's like the Fellowship of the what'd you say last episode?
Fellowship of the Nightwalker.
Fellowship of the Nightwalkers. It's almost like the Magnificent Seven. They're going off into the sunset. In this case, into the big, vast white.
We got Jon Snow giving or trying to give Longclaw back to Ser Jorah. I thought that was great symbolism. But Jorah obviously gave it back. He thought he wasn't worthy of Longclaw, I guess because he brought shame to his family. So
yeah, and it was very much a symbol of Jon's character. Ser Jorah, he did a lot of bad shit, so he was like, you know what, I'm not gonna take this sword from you. My father gave it to you, and so you should have it.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
Okay. And Arya, she's being very, very like stern with Sansa, almost kind of like lecturing her. You know, she brought out the letter as if to say, I don't believe these words are coming from you. And, you know, Sansa tried to explain it away. I wrote that letter under duress, but she still didn't believe her. So she's kind of giving her a really hard time.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not a fan of Sansa, so I don't really believe that, and I completely disagree. Like, I hate her character right now, and she's the least of my favorites in this show. What she did was true to her character. She was very weak as a child, and I still think that she's very weak, very naive at this point, even though she went through so many things. Ultimately, I still think that she's a very weak character at this point. She's the weakest out of all the characters, and I'm not on Team Sansa right now.
Yeah, those are some pretty heavy words, considering what, you know, Sansa has been through with Ramsay and, you know, all the way going back to Joffrey. I think anybody would kind of, at least if I were in that position, I wouldn't die so easily.
Have a little sympathy, I guess.
Yeah,
Well, I think they've both have been through a lot, and I just feel like I'm more in Arya's camp right now. I'm rooting for her to do some really cool shit.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm in her camp too. It's just, I just, you know, in terms of how Arya was treating Sansa, I understood. I kind of empathized. Like, you know, Sansa deserves a little bit of credit. That's all. So we go back to the Fellowship of the Nightwalker, where Tormund and Hound has a really interesting conversation about Brienne.
Well, first, let's get to the part where the Hound was talking to him about dick.
Yes.
And then Tormund was like, dick. And then he was like, cock. And it was like, oh, yes, I like that.
Yeah, that was, you know...
That was a great moment. I thought it was hilarious.
I thought that exchange was really funny. I mean, it all came down to colloquialism and the way the wildlings lived. It was funny to find out that they never heard the word dick before.
Yeah, that just kind of...
And he dug himself in a hole by saying he liked dick. But
Yeah.
we all know what he meant by that. But he did clarify that he does love pussy.
Especially Brienne of Tarth, who he's trying to have monstrous babies with her to rule the world.
So we go back to Dragonstone to find Tyrion and Dany talking about events as they've unfolded thus far. And we get a nice little Easter egg with Tyrion talking about all of the people who have fallen for Dany. And
Oh, yeah.
her expression when he says that Jon may have fallen for her is that of a girl who's like, oh, stop it. He didn't.
I think
he's
she was
not...
a little smitten at that point, or
Yeah.
she kind of saw a little truth to what Tyrion was saying. And for me and you, I think we both agree that there's something in the air there where you kind of feel like a budding romance is happening, but she's just denying that it's there.
Yes, definite denial.
The conversation suddenly took a turn when Tyrion brought up the subject of succession.
Yeah, there's a huge problem with Daenerys' succession. She can't have children, and he's thinking about the long term for this kingdom that she's trying to build, and it's a solid argument for him to make.
Yeah, but I would say that Dany makes a good point. It's like, I don't want to think about the long term right now. It's about the short terms. Like, your strategies have cost us Highgarden and Dorne.
Yeah, they both have valid points. So we get back to the Fellowship, and things happen.
That was amazing. You see a little you see a glimpse of. I thought it was a polar bear. It's a polar bear, right? Like,
essentially,
it's a shadow of a polar bear.
It was a bear.
I was like, oh shit! What you're going to see from what I said in the last episode is that Ghost is gonna come and kind of be part of this episode. But it
didn't look like Ghost. It had like brownish fur.
I was really hopeful that it was gonna be the return of the direwolves for this episode, but that was not the case.
There's gonna be a time for them. I know there's gonna be a time for them to return. I know Nymeria still has. Mm-hmm. She didn't show up in this season just to show up. So there's gonna be a time for them to come and save the day. I believe that the direwolves are gonna come back and have their moment to shine, especially with what happened in this episode.
I guess there's still hope for that. I'm still hoping for that. So we'll see. We've got plenty of dragons this season so far. Just a little bit of direwolves, but I have hope.
But the party, they spotted the bear and they were like, he has blue eyes. So it's like a White Walker bear, and it attacks them, and it viciously mauls Thoros, and the Hound,
crazily, stupidly afraid of fire, could have saved Thoros at that moment, and just blanked out and just froze and couldn't do anything to help him. And it kind of reminds me of that movie, The Revenant, when Leonardo DiCaprio was getting thrown around, getting mauled with the bear.
Kicked.
I mean, it wasn't that crazy, but he didn't do shit.
Yep.
And then you see Jorah come in with, I guess he has like a dragon glass dagger.
Yeah, he had like.
Because it was just one strike
machetes.
and that bear was done.
Yeah, that's how powerful dragonglass is.
One of the most powerful images from that sequence is really watching Beric Dondarrion with the fire.
Yes, the flame
the
swords.
flame sword. Thoros and Beric both lit up their swords like there's flint on their gloves. And
yeah,
I've never seen both of them doing that.
Yeah, that was a great moment. I mean, we got flame swords in Game of Thrones.
Hopefully there's a lot more.
Check that one off the list. So we go back to Winterfell, and Littlefinger is scheming again. He's trying to pit Arya and Sansa against each other, and my thoughts on this is that he's trying to get rid of Brienne. She's the last obstacle that's standing in his way to have Sansa all to herself. I mean, Brienne's sworn to protect her. And so he's, I guess, suggesting he puts Brienne onto Arya to make her think that Arya poses a threat to the house.
Littlefinger, by far for me, has just been the luckiest asshole in this entire series, because he should be fucking dead by now, but for some reason he's just so conniving and so scheming that he just gets away with everything.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to what I said in the previous episode. He could be a faceless, and he's got mad skill.
That is such a good theory. Oh my god.
He's got mad skill. I mean, he's outplaying Arya, or it could be a misdirect. Arya could be misplaying him, but Arya has seen him making his moves with the Bannermen around Winterfell, and putting the pieces together to kind of create this movement where the two sisters will clash. And so I think he's trying to take the whole North.
That is all great, but that is not what makes this episode awesome. Yeah, I mean,
we get to the coup de grace of this episode.
Yeah, so they run into a scouting party, and what we find out is very interesting. Jon Snow kills one of them, and then it looks like a Dracula moment where the rest of them falls.
It was a pretty cool revelation. I mean, it makes the fight a lot easier for them going forward to know that killing one would kill the many, especially when you think about the scope of the army that they're facing.
They capture one, and it lets out this really loud squeal.
Yes, and as soon as I heard that, we both knew that's when shit was going to go down, because that shriek obviously meant that more Night Walkers were going to show up.
Yeah, and then you just heard the earth trembling, and you knew that something was going to happen, so they book it, and they send Gendry back to Eastwatch.
Yeah, and so they found themselves surrounded. They had to fall back to this little island in the middle of a lake, frozen lake, and they were completely surrounded by White Walkers. Thankfully, the ice started to give way, and it gave them pause, because they were afraid of falling into the water, and that's what gave, I guess, Gendry enough time to get to Eastwatch.
We see the group kind of getting stuck in the middle here, and then there's just this standstill that's happening. And you brought up a good point that time in this season just flies.
Yeah, the pacing in this season is just completely out of whack. Everybody's been saying it since the beginning of the season. It seems like travel within Westeros this time around
it just seemed very impossible.
It's a non-issue
anymore. It's just like running at the speed of light. He gets to Eastwatch. The Ravens are sent. Next thing you know, Daenerys is hopping the dragon.
And so they find themselves in a very tough spot. Tormund almost dies.
I know.
And I mean, my heart was pumping. I mean, Tormund and Chill, he cannot die. He can't die. And I thought
it was very close, because you and I were talking about the character development in the beginning of the episode, where you knew something was going to happen because there's the warm exchange between the both of them. Yeah. And one of them is going to die.
But the Hound saves him, and that's sort of kind of like a redemption for earlier in the episode when he kind of got stricken in fear and couldn't do shit against the bear. So he stepped up, at least,
I would disagree. I don't think that's enough, because Thoros is the only one that can bring back Dandarians, so that's gone.
Well, I mean, I think he needed to die, to be honest. I think they needed some sort of plot device to kind of put Beric on the level playing field as Jon and the rest of them. So, like the Hound says, this is your last life. You better make use of it. And, I think he needed to die.
All hell is breaking loose. They're at the edge of the cliff, and there's nowhere else to go. There's White Walkers everywhere, and, you kind of just get a sense that something big is going to happen.
And you think, in normal timing, it wouldn't happen. But in this season, 2 minutes from when they got ambushed, the dragons are there.
Yeah, I wonder how much time passed, but I'm glad that this happened, because it was so epic. The Drogon comes in, Viserion, Rhaegal, just lighting up all the White Walkers, decimating that army, and essentially saving their asses.
Yeah, I just want to say that, like, it could make sense if time is flowing parallel to each other, where they've been stuck there for 2 hours. But it seems like in the episode they're stuck for like 2 minutes, and then the dragons are already there. But yeah, so all the dragons come down, light everybody up, and Drogon lands. Dany is like reaching out, take my hand. And Jon couldn't reach it, and so he goes off to fight, and the one thing that we didn't want to happen happened.
That was the worst thing that happened, because the Night King picks up an ice lance, and you see that he might be going after Drogon, but then you see either Viserion or Rhaegal in the distance, and you're like, oh shit, one of those theories is gonna come true. He shoots the ice lance, and boom, it's over. That dragon hits the ice, falls in the water.
It could have been Viserion. He was the smallest of the three, or it could have been Rhaegal. I'm not sure. but it goes with my theory that this dragon isn't actually dead. And we saw in the end of the episode that the Night King actually brings back the dragon. And my theory is that the dragon comes back as a night dragon or an ice dragon and continues to serve John. Now hear me out. The same way that Benjen is also a blue-eyed Nightwalker,
He's like
but
half
is
Nightwalker.
still cognizant of his memories and his service to Jon Snow.
Right.
So I think John's gonna take command of an ice dragon, and we're gonna have a fire dragon and an ice dragon.
And that is
Jon and
that is
Dany.
essentially the song of Ice and Fire. Ice dragon, fire dragon, boom, end of the world, right?
End of the world.
So Benjen does come through.
Yeah, he does save Jon.
He saves Jon, and away he goes. Sacrifices his life, and I guess that's it. You know, returns for one scene.
But I think his appearance goes hand in hand with my theory. They're
absolutely.
They're trying to reaffirm that Nightwalkers exist that don't serve the Night King.
Right.
And so I think, the revelation at the end with the dragon with the blue eyes, it's just a misdirect. I think if that is an ice dragon, that would have been Rhaegal.
Well, that's a really good theory, and we'll see what happens.
We get back to Eastwatch.
We get back to Eastwatch
Again,
and
this time skipping thing.
it just happened so quick, right?
Yeah, John got saved. Not a minute later, he makes it back to Eastwatch on the horseback, and he's alive. I don't even think they were even far from Eastwatch to begin with. Now that I think about it, but it's still like this time skipping.
They might have
thing.
been just waiting for a while. I don't know, maybe half a day or a day, and Danny is about to lose
I'm not
hope.
complaining. I'm not complaining.
Yeah, I mean,
a
I
lot
like
of
it
things
better
are
this way.
happening.
Yeah.
In a short span of time, and I feel like in the previous episodes we were just like waiting for things to happen. We were waiting for people to travel down south. We were waiting for
Right.
ships to sail. And I like this time
They've got to make up some time, They have one more season to go, and they've got to get the story progressed. Anyway, so it looks like Danny is about to lose hope. John comes through. He's pretty much half dead. They take care of him.
And
all of a sudden, they're in the ship.
And she sees his wounds.
Yeah,
she sees
his
that he
wounds.
actually took a knife to the heart for his people. And I don't know if that has an effect on how she feels. Maybe it like boosts it.
Yeah, I think so.
But you know what? It's a revelation for her. You think Dany seeing those wounds kind of makes her think he also came back, because she came back from like a fire.
Oh, that's right. She was reborn by fire.
Right.
And then Jon Snow is also reborn
In ice?
In ice, I guess. So we go back to Winterfell, and Sansa is sneaking around in Arya's room, and she finds a bag of faces. How weird is that?
That's pretty creepy. Like, I don't know how I would be able to react to that if I were...
I mean, if I found a bag of faces in your room, I'd be like, what the fuck is this?
And I wouldn't be able to explain it away. But
Arya finds out, and she's creepily standing behind her.
yeah, and then they engage in this sort of like mental game that she used to play in Bravos.
These questions
This
game.
question game. And I feel like Arya at this point is bearing down on Sansa mentally. You can see at the end of their exchange, you think Arya is going to do something, but she flips the knife around, hands it over to Sansa, and walks out of the room like a boss. And Sansa, you can see she's really scared.
Yeah, I don't think
she's close to tears.
I don't think she can fully understand or grasp what's happening right now, because I don't think she understands the kind of person Arya has become.
Yes.
She's become this like ninja warrior, master of darkness or something.
I mean,
and almost has no empathy for what's happening between. Almost has no empathy to Sansa on what she's gone through.
I think Arya at this point is stronger physically and mentally than
I
Sansa.
think so.
So I think she's just asserting herself and kind of playing this game the same way Littlefinger is playing a game. Shit's about to go down between the two.
I think so.
We come to the very final scene where Jon comes to, recognizes Daenerys, and
you see butterflies in the air.
Yep.
I mean, come on. There's a
it's
little
like
bit of
the
romance.
It's like the
now.
Notebook.
Yeah, I get it. Like, it's a lot of the theories are coming to full force now. They both see each other. There's a warm exchange, and he essentially calls her Dany.
Yeah, and he doesn't know her as Dany.
Right.
He's never heard that nickname before, and she was like, last time I heard that, I don't even know if was that my brother or was it That's like a name that I haven't heard in forever.
And it kind of breaks down her kind of shell,
yeah,
or this protective barrier against anything that revolves around love. But then he calls her, "What about my queen?" And then you're just like, oh, sparks and butterflies everywhere.
She just broke down at that point. She kind of
they
lost her.
They hold hands, and it's just kind of, okay, well, we know that these guys are going to get together. Again, another theory of the Song of Ice and Fire, and then go make love and do your thing, rule the world together.
Yeah, and she kind of like pulled away. She went back to her little denial state of mind and was like, I can't fall in love with this guy. I gotta go.
But you know what's going to happen in the next episode? Those two are getting it on.
Yeah, they will. That's going to be the budget for the next episode.
Just a 10-minute love scene between Jon Snow and Daenerys.
Yeah, and then there's going to be a dragon.
Somewhere
Somewhere
in the middle of that.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Watching Sundays. A lot of shit happened. We got dragons, ice dragons, White Walkers, Queen Daenerys.
Some love.
Yeah, love is in the air. But that just means the next episode is going to be even better, and I cannot wait.
Oh, I hope so. So if you like this episode, leave a thumbs up and subscribe for more. Until next time, I'm Flip.
And I'm Element.
This is Watching Sundays.